Okay, so my tipping point for attending Wharton. I've color-coded it to make it easier. So I was not a typical MBA, right? I had been working for 5 years. Actually, I've been working for 3 years, and every year I got all the business school applications. Harvard, Chicago, Kellogg, INSEAD, IMD, and every year I didn't apply, and a couple more of my friends went. Then after 4 years I did it again, I didn't apply, a couple more of my friends went. Eventually, after, I guess, 6 years, I finally did apply. Now, it was strange because at that point, I had actually been moving up through a couple of consulting firms where I worked, and I was at the entry-level job for MBAs. So it was a relatively stupid thing for me to go to business school, because that jump you take in salary, I had already taken. So that was kind of dumb of me in a way, right? Second thing, I had always wanted to work internationally. As you might be able to tell from my very screwed up accent, I'm not originally from here, I'm not originally from Australia or the US, I'm originally from England, but I spent most of my life growing up in the US, and I had this desire to get back to Europe and to work internationally, and I was already getting some of that in the job I was in. And then the third thing, I did the math, right? And the math was $100,000 a year in salary, give that up for 2 years. I think Wharton in those days was about 75,000 for the 2 years, about double that now. And then I would graduate and make maybe 100,000 again. So it was a negative ROI decision for me. Despite all of that, I still decided to go. So the school must have something. What did it have? Well, if you look at the green, strangely, I went to a very small high school in Delaware in the US. And of my 50 classmates, bizarrely, 3 of them went to Wharton. Odd, right? And they had all really enjoyed it. 2 of my Harvard roommates had also gone to Wharton and had really enjoyed it. So those were strong arguments for. And also, I thought I could broaden my international experience with the global immersion program that they had at the time. I would be forced to work in a team. Before I went to business school, I was an arrogant little prick, right? I thought that I was the best at everything. And I knew that I needed to be much better at working in teams, not even leading teams, but just working in them if I was going to be useful in my career. And I needed to be forced to be broken from that habit. And that Wharton offered. I'd lived in the Cambridge, Watertown, Boston area for 10 years, and I just wanted to try something new. I loved it, but I wanted to try something new. And then lastly, I wanted something more responsive. So Harvard University was a great experience, but if you want an unresponsive institution, Harvard University is an unresponsive institution. They exist forever. You are a mere student. You pass through. That's not small where you came from. And I was quite attracted to the responsiveness of Wharton. And for me, there was a particular tipping point which happened. And that's this. The dean at the time was Garrity, used to be at CSC, computer consulting company. And he he and his team overhauled the program at Wharton in 93, 94. And what they had did is they had such a strong track record of being a finance school that they wanted to change that. They wanted to be seen as a school based on their customer feedback, the companies who employ the graduates, where people were sort of like a tea. They got a little bit of all the subjects, and then they went really deep and were knowledgeable in something. They wanted to push people to work in teams, to be more creative and innovative, right? And that was a huge risk to take. You've got a business school here, which is the finance school, you know? Other than Chicago, no one else touches it, right? And it had very strong brand reputation. It was beginning to get a reputation around marketing and around entrepreneurship as well. But this was a hell of a risky thing to do. And I thought the kind of school that's going to take this kind of risk in order to have a better experience for its students, for me, that was the tipping point. That's what got me to go to Wharton. And in the end, although I visited Stanford, Harvard, I think I visited Tuck at Dartmouth, visited Wharton, I stayed with people, I went to classes. In the end, this was the only school I applied to. Okay?